History remembers her as the First Lady of the world. But behind the public steel was a private life full of risk, tenderness, and audacity. Love-soaked letters, a midnight flight in an evening gown, a revolver on the front seat, and a years-long duel with J. Edgar Hoover. Let's open the file. Hick, my dear. Letters that make biographers blush. By the hundreds, likely the thousands, Eleanor's letters to Associated Press reporter Lorena Hickok read like intimate confessions. The winter of 1933 to 34 holds the most quoted lines. I want to put my arms around you and kiss you at the corner of your mouth. Your ring is such a comfort to me. I look at it and think, she loves me, or she wouldn't have given it to me. Hickok was a fixture in the White House, trailing Eleanor on grueling Depression-era inspection trips and sharing long-after-midnight talks in borrowed sitting rooms. She soon left the AP to avoid conflicts over access, moved into federal relief work, and for a time kept a modest room at the White House. On March 4, 1933, Inauguration Day, Eleanor was said to wear a sapphire ring from Hick, a quiet signal that set off decades of debate. For some, it's a boundary-pushing friendship. For others, a love story hidden in plain sight. How do you read those lines? Friendship on the edge, or love unambiguously? A midnight joyride with Amelia Earhart in an evening gown. On April 20th, 1933, after a White House dinner, Eleanor and Amelia Earhart slipped out to Hoover Field and boarded a twin-engine Curtiss Condor operated by Eastern Air Transport for a hop to Baltimore and back. In the cabin, Earhart, Eleanor, and airline president Thomas B. Doe. The evening gloves and laughter didn't change the fact that both women took turns at the controls. Soon after, the First Lady filed for a student pilot permit. Serious flight lessons were clipped by security concerns and a brutal schedule, but the image stuck, a First Lady chasing the horizon at midnight. Reckless, a media masterstroke, or simply the pure thrill of flight? The only real romance outside her marriage? Bodyguard Earl Miller. In the late 1920s, Eleanor's security detail included cavalryman and New York State Trooper Earl Miller. He taught her to ride, fence, and shoot, swam with her in open water, and, famously, had a room waiting in every house she lived in. He sold her a favorite horse, set dawn rides through the woods at Val Kill, and built Spartan routines that she credited for keeping her steady when crowds closed in. Friends noticed how she brightened planning those rides and how he hovered, half guardian, half co-conspirator, when public appearances turned raucous. Years later, her son, James Roosevelt, would call the relationship possibly the only real romance his mother had beyond her marriage. Was it an affair, or a vital anchor and coach? Which side are you on? Lucy Mercer, Letters in a Suitcase, 1918, and A Secret Goodbye, 1945. In the fall of 1918, Eleanor found a packet of letters from Franklin's social secretary, Lucy Page Mercer, in his luggage. The confrontation was blunt. Divorce, or an end to the affair. Divorce collapsed under career risk and the iron will of Franklin's mother, Sarah Delano Roosevelt. The marriage survived, but as a kind of armed truce. Lucy married wealthy widower Winthrop Rutherford in 1920, yet the old magnetism never fully dissolved. In the 1940s, daughter Anna quietly arranged meetings between Lucy and the president. On April 12, 1945, when FDR died of a cerebral hemorrhage in Warm Springs, Lucy, by then Lucy Rutherford, was nearby. While in the next room, artist Elizabeth Shumatoff brushed color into what would become the unfinished portrait. The revelation cracked the private facade and rewrote the public's understanding of the Roosevelt marriage. For Eleanor, it landed as both a personal and public blow. A revolver on the front seat and threats from the Ku Klux Klan. An unexpected detail for a liberal icon. In New York State, Eleanor held a pistol permit for Val Kill Cottage in Hyde Park. Friends later said she had the legal right to carry but rarely did. Yet, in 1958, despite direct threats from the KKK, she traveled to Tennessee to visit the Highlander Folk School, a training ground for civil rights organizers that would welcome Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King Jr. According to close associates, the drive from the airport was made with a loaded revolver resting on the front seat between the passengers. No theatrical flourish, just a sober response to real danger. Highlanders' workshops taught citizenship schools and voter registration tactics and drew the fury of segregationist sheriffs. Eleanor answered with presents, praise, and another visit. The threats appear in her FBI file, a scene that shatters the gentle humanitarian stereotype and fits the steel in her spine. A flight with Chief Anderson and a spark for the Tuskegee Airmen, 1941. On March 29, 1941, Eleanor arrived in Tuskegee. Chief Instructor Charles Alfred Chief Anderson invited her into a Piper Cub, and up they went. Photographer P. H. Polk's images raced across the country. The First Lady serene in the cockpit, a black pilot confidently at the controls, an elegant rebuttal to the racist lie that Negroes can't fly. The gesture wasn't just symbolic. Those photographs and Eleanor's influence helped smooth acceptance in Washington for serious training of black military aviators. The Tuskegee Airmen soon followed. The myth crumpled. A folding chair on the color line. Birmingham, 1938. At the Southern Conference for Human Welfare in Birmingham, Commissioner Theophilus Eugene Bull Connor demanded the room be segregated. Whites on one side, blacks on the other. Eleanor quietly picked up a folding chair, set it precisely on the dividing line, and sat down between the worlds under the gaze of police and press. Reporters recorded the moment as a study in quiet defiance. Organizers pledged not to meet again where segregation was enforced. No speech, no slogan, just a still image that hit like a gavel. The FBI versus the First Lady of the World, 3,000 pages and Gestapo-ish. J. Edgar Hoover disliked her and built a file that swelled to roughly 3,000 pages. In its thicket, clippings, informant notes, interagency memos, and the fever dreams of segregationists who loathed her integrated appearances and her push for anti-lynching legislation. In My Day, and in private letters, Eleanor snapped back at the Bureau's methods as Gestapo-ish. The file veers from menacing to absurd. One sustained episode chased the rumor of Eleanor Clubs, supposed underground societies of black domestic workers plotting a holiday season labor revolt. Investigators reported what should have been obvious. No evidence, just a viral scare. The dossier endures as a mirror of its era. Fear, politics, and bureaucracy braided into one long, anxious report, and as proof that Eleanor preferred daylight to whisper campaigns. Media as a lever. 348 women-only press conferences and the Gridiron Widows. On March 6, 1933, Eleanor held her first press conference and admitted only women reporters. Over 12 years, she held 348 such briefings. If newsrooms wanted access to the First Lady's beat, they had to hire women. At the same time, she wrote My Day daily, converting travel notes, letters, and observations into a national conversation. When the all-male Gridiron Club barred women from its famous dinner, she staged parallel soirees, the Gridiron Widows, complete with sketches poking fun at politics, the press, and her own exclusions. Not a scandal, exactly. More like cold, elegant media engineering. The First Lady changed the rules. The press corps had to evolve or be left out.